this unit is on proportions, and it is part of Unit 5. And we want to be able to identify proportional relationships and solve proportions. Proportions are equations that state that two ratios are equivalent. They have a constant rate or ratio. So two ratios that are equivalent would be the main definition that you want to make sure you either have written down or circled in your notes. Proportional relationships have the same unit rate. So we know what ratios are, we know what unit rates are. We're going to use those to create and solve proportions. If we look here, 1/2 equals 3/6. Those are equivalent fractions. Those are also proportions. Or we could say 1 to 2 equals 3 to 6, or 8 to 10 equals 4 to 5. Cross products of any proportion are equal. Cross products are the diagonals of the proportion. You can compare unit rates or cross products to identify proportional relationships. We'll look at and use cross products as we go through this video. So first we need to make sure we know how to set up a proportion. A baker can make 25 cakes in 4 days. At this rate, it would take 12 days for him to make 75 cakes. Set up the proportion. So when we set up a proportion, our labels need to be the same, meaning our numerators and denominators have to have the same labels. So let's do 25 cakes in 4 days equals, because it told us that they are proportionate, equals. So then I'm going to make, my numerator has to be cakes, so equals 75 cakes in 12 days. So it's super important that proportions have, so 25 and 4 go together, so that's one ratio. 75 and 12 go together. But then we also have to make sure that cakes go to cakes and days go to days. During the last snowstorm, 22 inches of snow fell in 7 hours. At this rate, in 17.5 hours, 55 inches of snow would have fallen. So we could do 22 inches in 7 hours, but then we just need to make sure I know that inches is going to be on the top, hours on the bottom. So then it would be 55 inches, 17.5 hours. A carousel makes 4 complete turns after 64 seconds and 5 complete turns after 76 seconds. Based on this information, is the number of turns made by this carousel proportional to the time in seconds? So let's do 4 turns in 64 seconds. We want to know if it's the same as or if it's proportional to 5 turns in 76 seconds. So the way that we figure out if this is proportional is we look at our diagonals, which are our cross products, and we're actually going to multiply the diagonals. So we're going to do 4 times 76 and then 64 times 5. So I'm going to put that in my calculator. 4 times 76 equals 304. 64 times 5 equals 320. They are not equal, which means that these two ratios are not proportionate. Here's a couple more examples to determine if they're proportional or not. If you want to try to pause the video and try them, that'd be great. Then you can check, or you can watch me do one and then pause and do the second one. So 60 voted out of 100 registered and 84 voted out of 140 registered. So 60 voters out of 100 registered, 84 voters out of 140 registered. We want to know if they're proportionate. So we are going to do, we're going to multiply our diagonals. So 60 times 140, we want to know is it the same as 100 times 84? 60 times 140 equals 8,400. And I know 100 times 84 is 8,400 because we just do 84 and then add the zeros. So they are equal. So this is proportionate. And then we have $12 for 16 yards of fabric and $9 for 24 yards of fabric. So it doesn't necessarily matter the way that you set it up as long as you set it up proportionately. So I could do $12 for 16 yards, and then I just have to make sure that I would have to set it up as $9 over 24 yards. Or I could do 16 yards for $12, but then I would have to make sure that I would do 24 yards for $9. Either way, we would be multiplying the same diagonals, it's just that they're in opposite places. So I want to know they're proportionate, so I would do 24 times 12, and then I would do 16 times 9. 24 times 12 is 288. 16 times 9 is 144, so they are not proportional. So now we come to two proportions that we are told are equal. So let's look at this. 21 to 5, that's one ratio, is the same as C to 7. So we have two proportions. We're told they're equal. We have to figure out what is the missing variable. So remember that, I'm going to zoom in here. Remember that if we multiply our diagonals, that they would be equal to each other. So I know that 21 times 7 will equal, oops, that should be equals 5 times C, or just 5C. So 21 times 7, oops, is 147 equals 5C. Remember, a letter next to a number would just be the number with no operation. We just automatically know that it's multiplying. So I know that 5 times something equals 147. If I go backwards and I just divide 147 by 5, it would get me to C. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 5. Because 5 times C divided by 5 is just going to leave me with C. So then I'm going to do 147 divided by 5, and I get 29.4. Or, oh my goodness, sorry. So then I would put that up into C. So 21 to 5 is the same as 29.4 to C. Let's do another one. So really what we're doing is we have 2 and 6/10 to 13 is the same as 8 to 9. So really what we're doing is we're taking the diagonal that has the two numbers, so not the variable one, 13 times 8, we're going to figure out what that is, and then we're just going to divide it by the third number, which I just covered up, but it's 2 and 6/10. So I would do 13 times 8 divided by 2.6. And then n, we always want to say the variable, equals 40. Let's do a couple more together and then I'll have you pause and try one. So 16 to k is the same as 2 to 3. So we're going to find the diagonal that has the numbers. So not the, because remember there's two diagonals. We're going to find the diagonal that has two numbers. We're going to do 16 times 3. 16 times 3 is 48, and then we're going to take 48 and we're going to divide it by the third number, 2, and we get 24. So k equals 24. I also can see, first I want to check. So if I do 16 to 24 is the same as 2 to 3. 16, 24, if I put into my calculator 16 divided by 24, I get 0.6 repeating. 2/3 is the same as 0.6 repeating, so that's how I can check it. Okay, 2, 6 equals 5 over h, so I'm going to take my diagonal. This time it's this diagonal because it's making me multiply by two numbers, because if I'm multiplying by a variable, that doesn't really help me because I don't know what it is. So 6 times 5 equals 30, and then I'm going to divide it by the third number, which is 2. 30 divided by 2 is 15, so h equals 15. And then 2 to 6 is the same as 5 to 15. 2 divided by 6 is 0.3 repeating. 5 divided by 15 is 0.3 repeating, so they're the same. Pause and do the last one on your own really quick. So 10 to k equals 2.5 to 4, so I would do 10 times 4 is 40, divided by 2.5, so 40 divided by 2.5 would be k equals 16. 10 over 16 equals 2.5 divided by 4. 10 divided by 16 is 0.625, and then 2.5 divided by 4 is also 0.625, so it checks and we're good. And then lastly, we just want to be able to set up a proportion and solve it. So for every 18 people who have a sore throat, there are 2 people who actually have strep throat. If 72 patients have sore throats, how many of those would you expect to have strep throat? So 18 people, with a sore throat, 2 people actually have it. So 18 people with sore throat, I'm just going to do that, to 2 people with strep equals, so then we're told 72 patients with sore throats. So 72 patients with sore throats, that's going to go on the top because I have sore throat on the top, strep on the bottom. So we need to figure out how many people have strep. So then we would do 72 times 2. So 72 times 2 is 144 divided by that third number, which is 18. And we get 8. So x equals 8 people out of 72 that would have strep. Salvador can run 120 meters in 24 seconds. At this rate, how many seconds will it take him to run a 300-meter race? So we would do 120 meters over 24 seconds is the same as 300 meters over x. Notice that I have meters to meters. Oops, that should be seconds. Seconds to seconds. I also have it so that what Salvador runs, that's his information, 120 meters in 24 seconds, and then that's the information for the other ratio. So I would do 300 times 24, which is 7,200, divided by 120, and you would get x equals 60 seconds. Sorry this video was a little bit long. Make sure you have your notes in class. Have a great day.